Okay, you have like an intro you want to do?
Yeah. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Progression Session. I'm here with Jared. Today we're going to talk about how I learned how to coast, how he learned how to coast, and just what really helped us figure out how to do that, and kind of what we're working on. I know he mentioned talking about working on no throttle hands on his bike. I want to work on some stand-up stuff and also get on my no throttle hand game, and usually that comes into play with coasting. So Jared, how did you learn how to coast? You were talking about it earlier, and I really like the way you learned versus how I learned.
So I cheated on a Grom first, but you basically get to the point where you're dipping and letting off the throttle, and right at this like point where you would be able to do a no throttle hand is where I pull in the clutch.
Nice. Okay, cool. I personally learned how to coast from I learned how to coast really actually on this bike, which is, I mean, basically a big Grom if you really want to think about it. But I learned from pulling in right before balance point and kind of getting used to where the bike kind of likes to sit back and really hang on. But I would do something, I'm going to do it right now so I can actually fall, but I would pull in like right about there, and I'd let the bike kind of fall so I could get used to the weightlessness of it. And honestly, I feel like that one's a little bit, I don't know. When you were explaining it, it made a little bit more sense. Like being at that no throttle zone and having to feel it. I was just kind of guessing when I first started and praying to God that I didn't throw myself.
When I first did it, my first couple attempts were actually on an FZ07, but I was kind of dumb and I started trying to rev in my first couple attempts also, and it was so sketchy. I almost pulled a Giiaxi, bro. But that was way before Giiaxi was trying them. And yeah, definitely when you do these, don't give them any gas in the beginning.
Skirt! You're crazy for doing that at the end of one. Oh my gosh, that's wild. But yeah, so basic steps to learning how to coast. Really, for me, like I said, I would start in first, really second gear, because first gear is more for circle work and slow work. I'm assuming you know that.
I think first gear would be harder because you're going to be fighting so much more engine brake that if you're like, you might just go to the wrong spot, kind of. It's almost like even if you're in a higher gear where you have a little less engine brake, like third, it would make it to where you can get that like coast feeling a little better. I might even be able to, I can't really take my hand off that much, but it's like barely behind that point, I guess. I don't know. I guess people normally, they dip more when they do no throttle hands, but coasting is not as much of a dip. It's like just barely behind balance point.
Like he was saying, getting behind balance point and holding it there, just like you can see him really see the weight of the bike sitting back on the suspension when he pulls the clutch in. That's really what you're trying to do when you're coasting. You want to catch the weight of the bike because that engine brake completely disappears. And especially in the lower gears, like you were saying, in higher gears there's a little bit less, but that engine brake, there's a difference between engine brake coasting and actual coasting. Learning how to engine brake coast, which is what I'm going to do right here, is a good way to learn how to coast as well. Like I'm totally off the throttle right now, but I'm letting the engine brake keep me there. Like feathering the brake and rolling off the throttle is a good way to start. And then for anybody that's obviously trying to learn how to do them, once you get used to basically rolling off the throttle and just holding the wheelie, that's when you want to start to kind of pull in the clutch and use the same amount of brake control that you're using in engine braking. But obviously when you take away the engine brake, the brake is going to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, you gotta be way more careful when you're braking while coasting. And you also, like, you'll notice when you start the dip, if you pull in the clutch, you'll fall back because the engine brake is doing a little bit of foot brake work for you.
So watch his suspension. I'll zoom in on it right here, but see that? Ooh, see how his suspension compresses? That's what you're looking for when you're coasting, and you want to hold that there. And a lot of the times people screw that up because that initial setback throws a lot of people off, just like that. See how you can see, I'll zoom in right here too, but on his foot, he's barely feathering the brake, which is keeping it exactly where you need to be, and that's the whole game to coasting. And that comes into play with like circles and everything else too, is that foot brake control. But I don't know, coasting has been one of my favorite things to learn. I love clutch work, I love rev limiters, even though my bike may not love them.
I do too. This thing's gonna blow up. Oh shit.
Yep. But coasting is really important to get that down and to really have that control, because I don't know if you personally looped a rev limiter coaster, but I have, and it is terrible. I have a video of it too.
I haven't, but I've come close.
Yeah,
I get kind of sketchy sometimes.
But what would you say, like, is the like, I like to do a 3-tip thing when it comes to coasting. What would you say your top 3 tips to learning coasting is?
So I would find that balance point, or like right behind balance point, where it's like a dip where you can pull in the clutch and work on getting some like long distance coasters. And then if you're trying to like learn a rev limiter coaster, I would only do like really baby revs while you're coasting, and then once you can do those really long, then I would maybe do like a 1-1 and like a couple like tiny revs to test if you really got a good coast, and then hit the rev limiter and let off kind of quick so that your bike can go ahead and start getting ready to die. Because when you first do a rev limiter one, you might like, when you start like bringing the throttle into it, you start forgetting to be really careful on the foot brake. So it's like you'll be able to coast easier when you're only thinking about the foot brake. Then you bring both in and it gets sketchy. So really start with like baby revs in the beginning so you don't fall back. And if you do start giving it gas and you start coming down, just kind of let the bike slam, because if you don't know where to like release the clutch yet while it's got gas like giving it, like, you know,
yeah,
it's you don't want to let it go too early and fall back.
It's not good. I looped one on, not this bike, of course I have a habit of crashing other people's bikes, but I looped a 250X that was not mine right when I was learning rev limiters. It was my first time in Dallas, and I hit one, and I let the clutch go too early because I hit a bump, and I've never hit the ground so fast in my entire life. Oh man. But yeah, those are great tips. I think that's a great way to start learning how to coast and like where to go and really learning. And his bike, I like that you're on a sport bike and I'm on a supermoto, because that really can show the difference. Like his bike, it's gonna set back a lot harder than mine is, because mine weighs less than R7. So just the difference in like where your balance point is versus my balance point is like dope to see, you know, across the board.
It's definitely good to find your coast spot on your bike, like trying to find it with the engine brake as much as you can first, and then just a small clutch pull in, because if you just assume it's the same, then yeah, you'll definitely you might fall back pretty quick. And coasters, I think, are one of those tricks for me, like maybe not so much now, but when I was first getting better at coasters, they were one of those things that I had to refine my spot like every time I started with the first 1 or 2, because if I just went right into it trying to do a rev limiter, it was sketchy.
Yeah, I agree. When I'm doing coasters, like at least on the supermoto, I really look at the front fender and just the sound of the engine brake, like the roll off of the throttle, just like you were saying. And that, I hope I got that on video. That setback, I just pulled that in and I was a little too far forward, but I wasn't on the brake, and that kind of shot me back to the balance point initially. And that's another way to kind of get used to that. It's a little more aggressive than I personally enjoy, but that's another way to kind of feel how far back you can go versus how far forward you can go. But yeah, I mean, really the things that I would say to learning is, you know, just getting used to pulling right in front of balance point and kind of letting it down just like that. Started putting it back down, even in first or second gear if you're scared, you know. First gear, pop up, I'm right in front of balance point, I'm pulling it in, I'm putting it back down. I'm not quite where I need to be, but I'm getting right used to where it needs to be. I mentioned in the first progression session, like pulling it in before a certain line, like circling before a certain line. That's a good way to think about when you're coasting too, is getting the bike to at least stay up to a certain point, like from line to line or lane to lane, and that way you can kind of judge how far you go, because the farther back you go, you lose your momentum at that point. So at that point, that's where you get to kind of play with the balance point.
If you coast too far back and you're on the foot brake a lot, you'll slow down a lot. So definitely, if you were trying to coast long distance, it's just you're keeping it pretty tall.
So let me see the longest coaster right here. We got the whole lane.
Let me see, maybe I'll get a longer run up. I don't know, this lot's making me look like a worm.
Dude, this lot this lot is wild. Next time we'll go to the other one.
Yeah, I have a video on the FZ09 where I coasted like half a Meacham.
I saw that. Wasn't that recent?
Yeah, that was yesterday.
So watch his build up. See how fast he's going. And he's holding it. Just like that. See how he brings it back a little bit more to keep steady it out? That's exactly what you want to do when you're coasting. You know, if you're getting kind of out of control, lay off the brake and let it fall back a little bit more. It's really a balance game, and I really like coasting. Like I've mentioned before, I like technical riding. Like I really like circles because of that. I'm gonna do a circle real quick just so we can get warmed up for the day. But I like circles and coasting because of that, because, you know, let's circle in third gear first. It's fine. Because it's more of technical riding, and it's more so like really balancing the bike and understanding like the mechanics work. Like coasting for me is like total dead weight of a motorcycle, and it's just you, no engine, no throttle, no nothing. And that's like really, really impressive and really, really nasty, at least in my opinion, if you can get those nice and cold and smooth and on command like that. And I've seen you've been picking up circles like nothing, which is dope to see on the R7. Like dope as hell.
Yeah, I've been trying to do some stand-up circles too.
Yeah.
Gotta bring my idle up for that. Yeah. I looped one, or not looped one, I stalled one. Now I got these MBT pants because I hit my knees so hard on the way down.
Oh yeah, shout out MPC, I love him. Nicky Boy's Toys, shout out our boy. He's dope, he makes great pants. This is not sponsored, but it's kind of sponsored, but it's not sponsored. But he makes dope pants, dude. Yeah, hell yeah. Glad to see those in the works.
Now I got that idle adjuster so I can stop falling.
Hell yeah. But
I don't really do the idle with sit downs though. I don't know, I just clutch work the sit downs.
Clutch work, yeah, and that's another important thing. Circles, clutch work, coasting, like getting comfortable. You learn how to coast, you can circle, in my opinion. That's like... Yeah,
I learned how to circle and then I learned how to coast because I was circling the Grom with the clutch, and then I was like, well, if I can use it there and know when to give it gas and when not to give it gas, so I can probably coast at distance. And so that's how I kind of started doing it.
Jared's an overachiever. He's just flexing on us. He said, psh, you guys learn how to coast first? No, I circle first. But
well, the Grom doesn't count though, so.
I don't know, man. They never count. None of them count, right? None of the bikes count.
None of them. I don't know what else there is to talk about with coasting. I feel like it's I feel like a lot of the tricks are simple if you explain them completely, taking apart the part where people are scared to do stuff. Like, oh, just don't be scared, and it's really simple, but also it's not.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like breaking tricks down like that too, and especially like riding with other riders like yourself, and a lot of, you know, really people who are really getting really good really quickly and are just really nasty with control. Because if you break it down, I feel like the more riders you ride with, and
bullshit.
Nice. First one of the day. First one of the day.
That's like my first real drop on this thing.
Oh boy.
Whoops.
It's fine. It'll buff out. Some duct tape.
If only my reel cage was here. At least it didn't. No. I don't think it did anything. Did it? I don't know. No,
I don't see anything. It still looks good. Minty. I still see the shake on the HT Moto from when the shake spilled on you, bro.
Oh, the grimace shake?
On the HT Moto.
Yeah, there's so much.
Craig.
There's still purple on my engine.
Oh, man.
Grimace biting back, man.
Grimace speed, dude. Was that shit good? Was that good? I have not had one yet. It was pretty good. Huh.
It was alright. I don't think I would get another one though.
Thank you guys for watching and joining us. This is my very first dual vlog with Jared. Thank you for coming out, man. This was dope.
Yeah.
I'm excited to film some more content with you in the future, and you know, this is really cool. I love to ride with other riders and get really in depth to the sport. You know, it's dope. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, let me know what you guys want to see from me. Make sure you subscribe to Jared and check out his videos. He's a killer. He's doing awesome. Yeah, let me know what you guys want to see. I appreciate. There's a baby in the middle of the lot right now.
Yeah, I was
Whose
just
baby
thinking
is
about
that?
what if I go run him over. I'm like, stop you.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding.
Child abuse. Don't sue us. But yeah, let us know what you guys want to see. You know, subscribe, like, comment, all that fancy stuff. I appreciate the support always, and we will see y'all in the next one.
Laters.